Good day all. So this is our second class. This is our second session together in the web development course. So I assume that after our first interaction and I told us what we're going to be talking about this time around, and I assume that we've all gone to at least make a little research as to what it means. On the outline, we are talking about introduction to the web and how it works. So this is, will I say, our first official lesson. So today we're going to be talking about introduction to the web and how it works. We are trying to become web developers. We are learning web development. And just like the name implies, web development, it means everything that we do, just like the web browsers, web development, the websites, the web apps, they all have one thing in common. They have the word web there. So what is the web? How does the web work? I'm pretty sure all of us know what the web is as at this point. We all know what the web is, we all know what the internet is. But just to give us a very, very brief summarized recap, the internet is just a connection of computers that are communicating with each other. That's basically what it is. I have a computer, I have data, somebody else has a computer, the person has data, we are all on the internet. What the internet is a collection of computers that are communicating with each other, that are connected. So that's basically what the web is, that's what the internet is. Just like spider webs, it's an interconnection, it's links. So this computer is linked to this computer, connected to this computer, can communicate with that computer, and that is what it is. So it is fundamental to understand how the web works for us to be able to develop systems that will function on the web. Because without the web, our whole job, our whole career description will not exist. There will be nothing like web developers if the web or the internet did not exist. So therefore, the web is like our playground, is like our field. Let's say as an engineer, for example, or an architecture. Let's say you want to build a house. So yes, okay, perfect. A building engineer. You want to build a house, or you want to build something. You have to first go to that location, check what is the weather like there. I'm no expert, but at least I know this. You have to check what the area is like. You have to check what the soil is made up of, what it is like. You have to check the weather there. That's why you see that most times the buildings that we have over here in Africa is different from what is in Europe, is in Asia, because every location has the type of building that suits it. Every location has its weather. They have their natural disasters, they have the conditions of the soil, of the environment, the things they have to deal with. So you have to factor all that in when considering the structure to build on that particular location. So that also applies to web development, because we are building on the web. We have to know how it works in order to make perfectly tailored solutions on the web. In order for our solutions to be effective, to work as intended, and to be very, very efficient, we have to know how the web works. Because all that we are doing is interacting on the global village called the web, called the internet. So with that in mind, let's go ahead to understand how the web works. So from my screen here, you can see it clearly written how the web works, right? So what happens when you view a web page in a web browser on your computer or phone? That's the question. Whoever sat down to actually think about it. What happens when I just go to Instagram and I see everybody's posts? Or what happens when I go to a random website and I see all the content? How does that happen? What is the mechanism in play behind all that process happening? That's what we're trying to understand. So like it says here, this detail is not essential to writing web code in the short term. But before long, you really start to benefit from understanding what's happening in the background. So like I said here, as a beginner, this information will necessarily not be important or useful to you. But as you begin to advance into the field of web apps and you begin to manipulate your web pages to be more than just websites, you begin to value this information. You have to know what is going on behind the scenes, what happens. So that's the questions we aim to answer in this very class, or in this very session. So First of all, we have two main entities. Every computer, every mobile device, in fact, every device that is connected to the internet is usually divided into these two entities. You are either a client or a server. So these are the two primary entities that everyone connected to the internet is. Everyone connected to the internet is either a client or a server. And of course, when I say everyone, I don't mean you literally, because there's no way for you to be connected to the internet. It is your computer or your device. You are just using it, right? So every phone or every laptop or every desktop or every television that is connected to the internet is divided into these two entities, client and servers. So you might be wondering, what are clients, what are servers? So computers connected to the web are called clients and servers. As long as your phone is on and you have data, your data is on, or you connect to a Wi-Fi, you are either a client or a server. So how do we then differentiate between clients and server? You must say it's simple. Well, it is very simple actually. You must have heard this word a lot of times or even seen it in movies. Servers basically are computers that store web pages, websites, web apps, applications, and all that. That's the primary focus or the primary purpose of servers. They are just storage devices. Think of your flash drive or your hard disk. What it does is store information. Primarily what servers do. Although that's their primary function, they perform other secondary functions, but that's not for us to go into now. That's more of back-end developers issue, right? Us, we are concerned with majorly the clients. What are clients? Clients are users, computer users like me and you, trying to access the web using our mobile devices or our computers. So servers store while the clients try to access whatever is stored on the servers. So every single website you try to access is on the server somewhere. Every single application you try to access is on the server somewhere. What literally happens when you open it is that you get a copy of it sent to you. If it's a website, you get a copy of it sent to you, or if it's a web app, you get a copy of it but tailored specifically to you, sent to you. So of course you cannot send the whole of YouTube to somebody, but I can send the whole of Cedar Africa to someone because it's just a static website. Don't forget our analogy about websites and web apps. But to send the whole of YouTube to somebody will be impossible. Their phone will not even be able to carry it. So you have to send, okay, only the pages this person is likely to engage with, type of videos they like, the people they subscribe to, the videos they've added to their playlist. Those are you have to narrow it down. That's when you use things like algorithms that study the people and how they behave and create a profile for them and send only a few hundred videos to them, all that stuff. That is how the client and the server interact with each other. The client make requests and the server responds by sending a copy of the website or the web app to the client. Right? So that's clear. We all understand what servers are. We all understand what clients are. Servers store, clients use, basically. While the client does the requesting while the server responds. So going down, okay, we have an explanation here. Clients are the typical web users' internet-connected devices. For example, your computer connected to your Wi-Fi, or your phone connected to your mobile network, and web accessing software available on those devices. Usually a web browser like Firefox or Chrome. While servers are computers that store web pages, sites, or apps. When a client device wants to access a web page, a copy of the web page is downloaded from the server onto the client's machine to be displayed in the user's web browser. So basically, that's what we explained. The client will request and the server will send a copy of that web page to the user. And the way the user can receive this web page is through a web browser. That is primarily what happens, right? But there's a deeper level to it. That's not everything that goes on, right? That's just a simplified version of everything that goes on. In between the client and the server, there's a lot that goes on in between the client and the server. So the server is on one end, the client is on one end. What makes them able to communicate to each other? That's what we want to know now. The other part of the toolbox, right? This is the other things that happen. The client and server we've described above don't tell the whole story. There are many other parts involved, and we'll describe them below. Okay, great. For now, let's imagine that the web is a road. On one end of the road is the client, which is like your house. On the other end of the road is the server, which is like a shop you want to buy something from. That's just painting a picture, right? You in your house is the client. The shop is the server. You want to get something from the shop. Same way you want to get a website from the server, right? So in addition to the client and the server, we need to discuss the internet connection, number one. This allows you to send and receive data on the web. It's basically like the street between your house and the shop. So, of course, if there's a house and there's a shop, there has to be a way to get from the house to the shop, which is where roads come in. Streets, roads, paths, alleys, whatever you call it. There has to be something in between that house and that shop in order to get there. That is the internet connection for the client and the server. There is no way the client communicates or gets anything from the server without the internet connection. It's just like you trying to, that's why you cannot open anything when you don't have data. You'll be so frustrated. You cannot open your Facebook, you cannot see your emails, you cannot watch any video on TikTok because the internet connection, which is the road that lets the client and the server send and receive data on the web, is non-existent. But the moment you turn on your data and you have data, perfect, everything starts running because the road and the linkage between them has been established. So that is what the internet connection is. Another part of this puzzle is TCP/IP, Transmission Control Protocol and Internet Protocol. First of all, the word protocol might sound a bit confusing, but what are protocols rather? Protocols are just a set of instructions or rules that guide how a certain action should be taken. If you've gone to events, you'll see a lot of protocol officers. They'll tell you where to sit, how to sit. They're just there to maintain the order. That's basically what protocols are. They are maintaining the order. They are defining how things should be done. They are structuring everything. They are giving form to everything. So what does TCP/IP do? TCP/IP are communication protocols that define how data should travel across the web. This is like the transport mechanisms that let you place an order, go to the shop, and buy your goods. Coming back to our analogy, you want to go from your house to the shop. You have to think, how far is the shop? What time of the day it is? Is it already? If it's in the morning, you might say, I just want to stretch my legs, or in the evening. But if it's in the afternoon when the sun is out, you say, no, I cannot trek. I have to maybe use my car or use a bike, whatever you have available. So that transport mechanism, right, is defined by you now. You're thinking, you're deciding based on the weather condition, based on the distance. That's what TCP/IP does. It determines the traveling or the transport mechanism that the data is sent across between the client and the server. That's what TCP/IP means. That's what it represents. Then we have DNS. Let me scroll down. Let me just highlight it so we are all on the same page. This is DNS. DNS meaning domain name servers. So domain name servers are similar to an address book for websites. When you type a web address in your browser, the browser looks at the DNS to find the real website address before it can retrieve the website. The browser needs to find out which server the website lives on so it can send HTTP messages to the right places. This is like looking up an address of the shop so you can access it. So again, back to our analogy, you want to go to a shop. You have to know where the shop is to be able to go there, right? Even if you are driving or whatever you're doing, you're trekking, you have to know where it is. So DNS now is a system that lets you get the address of every website. We all know the names of websites, but we don't know the addresses. We know Google is the name of a website. We know TikTok is the name of a website. We know Facebook is the name of a website. We know Apple is the name of a website. If you go to your browser and type www.apple.com to take you somewhere, we all know that's a name, but we don't know the address. And just like how the real world works, the web, the internet also works similarly. Remember, every website or every web app or every application is stored on the server. But in that server, we have to know their address. Just like you can know your friend lives in Abuja, but you have to know where in Abuja for you to get to your friend's house. How do we then know the address? But of course, me and you don't need to know the address. We just go and type in the name and the browser does all the work for us because the browser does it behind the scene. But we are now trying to understand how that is possible. How do we just type a name and all of a sudden the browser knows where to check, which server to check, where in the server to check to get to the website? That is what is domain name servers. Domain name servers is basically the address book for website, right? Think of it like this. When you want to call a friend, all you have to do is go to your contact list and search for the name. If you don't know the person's number, you just search for the name and you call. Automatically, you've already saved it with that name. Same way when you create a website and you get a domain name, they attach their domain name to an address so that whenever anybody in the world types that name, your browser automatically goes to the server and gets the real address, which are called IP addresses. Once it gets the IP address, then it can now display it to you. So that's what domain name servers are. It is the address book for websites. Just the same way you save a name and then the number attached together, the same way domain name and an IP address are attached together. Sometimes even multiple domain names are attached to the same IP address. Just like plenty people can live in the same house. Multiple websites can live in the same IP address, just that the sizes then matter. But then we've not gotten to that yet. So that's the whole system behind the domain name servers. Now your browser does all this behind the scenes and you are not even aware of it. It happens in a matter of milliseconds.